Hello class 5. Hope you all are fit and fine. So let's start our online science class. As you know that we are continuing the revision of our chapters we all completed the chapters for our first term examination. So today we will revise the chapter 8, Air and Water. Hope you understand all the chapter very clearly as I discussed in my online classes, and I gave you the question answers to read the question answers very carefully. Those question answers are very important, and basically our question will be MCQ type. So read and memorize the objective type question answers very carefully. Okay, so let's start. You know that our earth is surrounded by air. We all need air to breathe. Air is a mixture of several gases. And you know, the layer of the air that surrounds our mother planet Earth is called as atmosphere. And in atmosphere, there are 5 layers. Troposphere first, then stratosphere, then mesosphere, then thermosphere, and then exosphere. So firstly, troposphere. Troposphere is the lowest layer of the Earth's atmosphere. And the second major layer of air just above the troposphere is the stratosphere. You know, the aircrafts fly in this region. The aircrafts fly in stratosphere. And the ozone layer, that is very helpful for the living organisms, present here in this layer. That means the ozone layer present in stratosphere. It protects the earth from harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. Next is mesosphere. The region of the Earth's atmosphere above the stratosphere is mesosphere. In this layer, temperature decreases as the altitude increases. It is about 50 to 80 kilometers above the Earth's surface. And the next is thermosphere. Above the mesosphere, there is thermosphere. And it is the 4th layer of air. It extends from 90 kilometers to 500 kilometers above the Earth. And the space shuttles orbit in this region. And above all these layers, troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, then there is exosphere. It is the outermost layer of Earth, and it extends up to thousands of kilometers, and it has very thin layer of air. Clear? Now, what is the importance of air? You know, air is the prime reason of existence of life on the earth. Without air, we can't survive. It supports plants, animals, and other organisms. The ozone layer present in the atmosphere protects the earth from the ultraviolet rays of the sun and becoming too hot. And now, what is the composition of air? Air comprises of a mixture of gases. Air has 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and you know oxygen is very essential for all the living organisms. And it is essential for burning. And there are 1% of other gases like argon, which is used for making light bulbs and fluorescent tubes. Air also contains carbon dioxide, which is required by plants for making their food, and the process is called as photosynthesis. And there are other gases like hydrogen, helium, xenon, etc. Beside the mixture of gases, air contains water vapor and dust particles in it. Okay. Next is the properties of air. And the three main properties of air are, first of all, air occupies space. When air is blown in an object, the object increases in its size. For example, whenever you blow a balloon, then it increases in size. A balloon is flattened firstly when you blow air in it, then it increases in size. And rubber tube is also, you can, for example, you take a rubber tube which is filled with air. The tube inflates while, and if we puncture the tube due to loss of air. Next property of air is, air has weight. Air is matter and thus it occupies space as well as has weight. We can better understand this property once we read the following activity. Here is an activity for you. So, through this activity, you can observe that the scale on the inflated balloon side goes down, indicating that air has weight. Now, the next property of air is, air exerts pressure. The air exerts pressure on all the things around in all the directions. Like when a glass filled with water is made inverted, tightly holding the cardboard against the rim of the glass. On removing the hand from the cardboard, the water will not fall. It is the pressure of air that is exerted on the cardboard, which is more than the pressure exerted by water inside the glass. Okay? The next most important is water. Water is very important for us. Almost 75% of earth is covered with water. It is in the form of oceans, rivers, lakes, etc. But very less amount of water is usable. That means very less amount of water is usable for human consumption. And you all know that water is very useful to us. We not only drink water, but we use water for several purposes like cooking, washing, irrigating farms and produce electricity, and in the industry, different types of industry, we need water. So it is very important. Water is very important for us, just like air. Water is being polluted by throwing wastes into the rivers, oil leakage by water transport, poisonous gases and chemicals. All these substances pollute the water, and these substances which pollute the water are called as impurities. And impurities are of two kinds, soluble and insoluble. Impurities that dissolve in water are called soluble impurities like salt and other chemicals, and insoluble impurities do not dissolve in water like sand, mud, etc. So how can we remove insoluble impurities from water? There are three ways to remove insoluble impurities from water. These three ways are sedimentation, decantation and filtration. When we just give time to settle down, the muddy water, then the impurities settle down at the bottom of the container. This process is called as sedimentation. When you have go through an experiment, take some muddy water in a glass and then stir it and leave it for some time. You will see that the sand settles down at the bottom and the water is clean. The water is clean. Okay, so this is sedimentation. Now is decantation. This process is the next step of sedimentation. When the impurities settle down at the bottom of the container, we can slowly pour the clean water in another container. This process is called as decantation. Next is filtration. In this process, a filter paper acts as like a sieve and water is passed through it. The impurities remain in the sieve and the clean water collects in a flask. You can see here in this picture, there are muddy water are poured on the filter paper and the clean water that is collected. Okay, this is filtration. Now is removing soluble impurities. So there are different ways to remove soluble impurities from water. These are evaporation and distillation basically. Evaporation is the process when the water is heated to boil, which converts the liquid water into water vapors and the dissolved impurities left behind in the vessel. Clear? Here, through an activity, you can understand the process. Next process is distillation. In this process, the water that evaporates in the process of evaporation is collected in the form of steam and then passed through the condenser. The steam turns into liquid and gets collected in a container. And the water collected by distillation is the purest form of water. And so it is called as distilled water. Now, how we can purify drinking water? Contaminated water may contain germs and can spread disease. So, it is very essential to drink clean water. How we can purify drinking water? The boiling is the simplest way of purifying water in households, and we have to boil the water for 10 minutes. This will kill the germs and make it safe for drinking. When it cools down, it should be stored in clean bottles or containers and cover them. And next process is chlorination. This is a method to purify water by adding chlorine in it. Chlorine is added to water which kills germs. Chlorine kills germs which contains in water and makes the water pure. This method is used in houses and residential colonies basically to clean water in the overhead tanks. Water found in different sources of water is not fit for direct consumption. It needs purification before being pumped for domestic purposes to towns and cities. This process of purification involves sedimentation, filtration and chlorination. Here in the diagram, you can see the different process. Firstly, the water is muddy, then after sedimentation, filtration, chlorination, and then it is pure water. Okay. This is the process of purifying drinking water. So it was the chapter about air and water, and I telling you again that read the question answers very carefully and read each and every line of the chapter thoroughly. Okay, so this much for today's class, and bye till my next class.